Hello.
Hello.
We are back.
Back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you just copying everything I'm saying at this
Okay.
point? Henry's on a 2 second delay. You're gonna
Yes,
have
I'm
to bear
Twitch
with
chat.
us. Yeah. Yeah.
That's what morning of tutoring does to you.
Yeah. Well, now you've got an afternoon of streaming, so
Yeah.
yeah, the nice stuff after the not nice
Nice stuff.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect.
Tutoring, I guess, can be nice. But yes, welcome back to Behind the
Research.
Research and another Meet the People stream.
Yes, it is first of the month, and it's the first Friday of the month because it
Yes.
is the first of the month
Yeah. Yeah.
by definition.
And we have with us today Scarllette,
Hi.
who is a first year PhD student in the ART-AI CDT here at Bath. So as you already know from Behind the Research and Samba, we love an acronym, and apparently that is not just specific to the maths department. So yeah, would you, I guess, maybe like to explain a little bit about your research or your
So
CDT
I'll
and
give an intro to
yeah,
ART-AI first.
yeah.
ART-AI stands for Accountable, Responsible and Transparent Artificial Intelligence. We're a CDD based in the computer science department,
Mhm.
but we have a range of disciplines, everywhere from sort of your hardcore computer science to a little bit of maths in that. We do engineering, we encompass some physics, all the way to social sciences and the social science aspect
Mm.
of AI. The one focus we all have is AI that is, it's in the name, it's responsible and transparent.
Okay.
So we do research around AI that is acting responsibly, also AI that humans can understand.
Mhm.
So a lot of our research, and that's the transparent aspect.
Yeah.
A lot of our research is in how do we make AI understandable to
Mhm.
humans,
Yeah.
and that ranges from sort of the social science side of policy making and
Mhm.
explaining that, the engineering side of developing tools to help explain AI, and to the computer science side of making AI that is inherently understandable.
Okay. Mhm.
Um,
So you said your first year. Oh my God. Is
yes.
that first year research or first year of the talk? Because I'm first year research, but second year in SAM,
Yeah.
and I'm always in like this thing of like, how do I explain what bit of a PhD I'm on to somebody who doesn't like
Yeah.
know the inter like structure? So
So
you, yeah,
we work in the same way. You do it's over 4 years, but your first year is an MRes.
yeah,
So you do a
same,
master's year with any ideas that you have to do a unit in each of the disciplines. So
okay,
we do
Okay.
you do a computer science unit, you do an engineering
Mhm.
unit, you do a social science unit, and then you have to take, I believe it's a module called Humans and Intelligent Machines,
Okay.
which is in the computer science department, where it's much more about how humans relate to
Mhm.
machines and the ways in which
mm,
that's evolved over the years.
Mhm.
So your first year MRes is based on that. You don't do most of the time. You don't do any research. There are exceptions, um, but you remember that's your first year, and then you have a little report and a little exam to check you're all
Yeah.
good,
yeah,
and then you're officially started a PhD, but then you just start research for the
Full time.
yeah,
full time for 3 years
Yeah.
or however many years that may be.
Okay.
yeah,
I really like the sound of that though. Like, so we again, our MRes is sort of similar in the fact that we take modules in first
yeah.
year, and they get us to take like a breadth of maths
Of
modules.
course, like the sort of applied maths discipline, so we have to take like a couple of stats modules, couple of probability modules, and I think a couple of like numerical modelling
Yeah.
modules.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess so we're encouraged to be as broad as possible within applied mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
But I really like the idea that it's like you just get thrown into like an engineering
Oh
module and
yeah,
that
Yeah,
sort of thing.
and
It's
and sometimes I think with the social science and the computer science ones, they are tend to be really lovely
Mhm.
because
mm,
either you are coming in as a social scientist, and it's really good having the background of, I don't need to know precisely how to like build a neural network or
Mhm.
the AI, but it's good to have context about how these things work. And as a computer scientist, if you're coming in, it's lovely having all of the social science things in mind as you build these things and
Yeah.
considering
Yeah.
them. The engineering ones can sometimes be a bit of an odd duck out just because of the nature. I think if you're, for lots of people like me, you can start the RTI program and you have absolutely no background in engineering.
Mhm.
So how do
mm,
you take an engineering module if you have absolutely no background in it? You're kind of forced to take modules which are interesting on their own,
Mhm.
but maybe less really not very applicable to your research down the line.
So what sort of engineering is it? Is it like mechanical engineering
Yeah.
or like okay,
You tend to do so. The ones I've done are systems modeling and simulation,
okay,
which is like real generic MATLAB simulating a
okay,
system,
Right.
lots of differential equations, that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And then the one I'm doing now is autonomous systems and navigation. Again, very generic. How do we
Mhm.
how do as humans how do GPS systems work? How do we navigate on a ship? How did that work
Yeah.
before? Stuff which is very interesting,
Mhm.
and is nice to have as a bit of background knowledge,
Yeah.
but I'm not really going to be using
Yeah.
further down the
So
line.
like the engineering stuff is like the applications of AI.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
So we have a massive group of people in the CDT who are doing chemistry research,
Mhm.
which is on using machine learning in chemistry,
Okay.
Fascinating. Yeah.
and that's massively that sort of the applied side of ART-AI.
Mhm.
Using how do we use responsible AI in these specific domains?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. No, so how did you find that then, having to come in? Because I guess you were maybe at a slight advantage having like a maths and comp sci background.
So
Um.
my background is I did mathematics, computer science here at Bath.
Mhm.
Okay.
I did it as a undergraduate master's, so it's 3 years undergrad, but then I
Yeah.
immediately roll in and do a master's.
Mhm.
What it meant is so a lot of the computer science modules I could APL, which means I don't have to take them.
Okay.
I've like proven I don't need to do machine learning again. I've literally done the
Yeah.
module.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have to take them. So it was a big focus on the social science ones and the engineering ones. I found the engineering ones tricky, but I'm enjoying them.
Yeah.
And the social sciences ones less difficult, but almost much more interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't got I need to do well in them
Mhm.
to continue, but I'm not worried about getting like a really high mark. So I can
Yeah.
almost like do enough and then just enjoy the
Yeah,
module.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that makes so much difference as well. Like I think I found going through any kind of like learning or academia that if you're enjoying something or if it's taught really well, then it's like it takes that pressure
Mhm.
off and it's just yeah,
No,
yeah.
definitely,
Mhm.
definitely.
Okay. But no, I must admit, like I've done some maths research that's been kind of linked with like social sciences and like opinion dynamics. And just this, I think having that human side of it makes it so much more relatable as well. Like even when you say like engineering, like ships and GPS, like we can all relate to that.
Yes,
But I
yeah,
think having that just human element, like
definitely.
makes it so much more interesting sometimes.
I think there's also I always get pushed by my supervisor, not just to read a lot within the field of reinforcement learning, which is
Hmm.
my I see, it's my discipline in researching, but to read science papers around that,
Hmm.
both because it gives you that human context, but also if you want to generate papers quickly, pulling areas from other disciplines
Yeah,
is a good way of doing that.
yeah, yeah. Mm. Mm. Okay.
So you said your background was maths and comp sci at Bath.
Yes.
What was it that made you, I guess, decide to do that joint honours from like earlier on?
So when I was looking, I did my A levels here in the UK. Well, I did them in Wales.
Happy St. David's
Yeah,
Day, by
happy
the
St.
way.
David's Day. So I always knew. Initially, I wanted to do physics. I taking the physics A level, I realized I enjoyed physics as a hobby, and what I actually liked was all the maths.
Sorry.
You start physics A level, and it stops being physics and starts being applied
Yeah,
maths.
yeah.
But then I also realized I really like programming,
Hmm.
and um, I'm not good with like building physical things.
Hmm.
I like building algorithms and like fun
Yeah.
programs and things like that, and that's almost like my creative outlet.
Okay.
Mm, I just wanted to combine those. I couldn't decide.
Hmm.
There were a couple of places which were doing maths and computer science, which at the time meant I didn't have to decide and I could do
Yeah.
both. And looking back, I think it was a really good decision because even though I saw it as great, I can do both, I don't have to decide, it set me up quite well for very specific computer science
Mhm.
research
Yeah.
where I end up using a lot of the maths. If I had just done maths or just done
Mhm.
CS, I wouldn't have the joint skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And did you have any exposure to computer science like
I
pre-university?
was really lucky I did.
Okay, okay.
So my school offered computer science A level,
Right.
which the school I went to no longer offers anymore,
Okay.
which is such a shame. Um, but I also had it through things like Matt Parker and Numberphile, and Computer File, these like YouTube channels,
Okay.
which had a maths leaning to them, but we're looking at computer science things in them.
Okay.
Our school, weirdly, you couldn't do further maths and computer science.
Really?
Yeah, you could not do both those at the same time in our school. They clashed, like in a intrinsic way.
That's why there's so many
Yeah.
people.
It's like the stupidest thing. Like, surely these modules have quite a high overlap of.
Well, my final A levels ended up being maths, further maths, computer science.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Yeah. which was really strange.
No, I can imagine. So
I think I probably would have done computer science as opposed to physics if I had like a
if
free
you could,
choice. Yeah,
and lots of computer science degrees at university now. They can't ask in the UK. They can't ask for computer science because not everywhere offers it.
Yeah.
But they do ask for maths and further maths.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
And so I guess even in doing maths A levels, you're setting yourself up for a computer science degree because they know that's the main thing that they can
Yes,
draw on.
exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely. If you that's the advice. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I think, again, I would always advocate for people taking maths. If you enjoy it to a certain extent and it's like you're really not put off, then I think it does open so many doors. So
It does.
Yeah.
It really, really does.
But it's nice that your A levels kind of led perfectly into doing that joint.
Looking back, they
honours
really
degree.
did.
Yeah.
So I did undergrad,
Mhm.
and so as part of the all computer science degrees here, in your third year and if you do the fourth year like I did, you need to do in your fourth year, it's your dissertation, but you need to do like a project of some kind.
Yeah.
And in my third year, I was semi-interested in AIs and working with them, and I got the chance to do a project of training an AI to play a board game. And that's what got me interested in reinforcement learning, because it was using that framework. And lots of people in the computer science department, you do a placement year. So between your penultimate year, you go a year in industry. I wasn't doing that.
Okay.
At the time, I didn't want to spend 5 years here. Look at me now, I'm going to be doing But I wanted to do an internship just to get the industry experience.
Yes. Yeah.
I was applying for these internships, and they weren't. My CV wasn't in the best place, but also none of them really appealed to me or looked interesting. And I realized all I wanted to do was just keep working on my project and also keep learning about reinforcement learning and this kind of way of doing artificial intelligence. I spoke to my supervisor, who's Joshua Evans, who's still in the lab, now a really good friend, and he said, talk to my supervisor, Oscar Simchak. She wants more PhD students. She's always looking for them. And one thing led to another. I did my master's dissertation under Joshua and Oscar. They helped me apply to ART-AI, and here I am.
Yeah. So they trapped you in basically.
Yeah.
Best laid plans and all
It was like a
that.
similar thing with me. So I did my master's with one of the academics in the department. They said, "Oh, have you heard about Sounder? You should consider applying." So I was like, "Okay, fine, I'll apply." I think which does then it also helps like advertisement. I think it's nice going in somewhere where you're really like, okay, they believe I can do this.
Yes,
as opposed to going in somewhere completely like
a bit blind.
Yeah, and like
it can be a nice boost of confidence, and one where sometimes you need it. You don't need somebody like, "Oh, you're the best," but like, no, we do think you can do this. It's a lot of work.
No,
but
that's the reason why I applied to do like a PhD, because like, oh, somebody I respect saying that you're good enough to do this. It's nice to.
It makes so much difference. But we've had a question in chat which we will sort of sidetrack to, and that says, "How do you approach communicating AI safely to the public?"
Oh, good question. My pessimist answer is it doesn't work. My parents still think that Elon Musk is a great guy, but I am an optimist. I suppose drawing from human examples where AI, pointing to them where AI has gone bad. A lot of people. A great example is the writers and actors strike, and a big push of that was studios threatening to take jobs because they were going to use generative AI to replace writers and actors. But if you relate that more to the human side of it, that like this was the case of AI using, this was bad, but we were able to push against it and get these regulations in place for the most part. But then also showing it better sides of AI. A lot of machine learning classification is on like medical imaging and tumor detection, and you could immediately see how that is a better side of this.
Yeah.
Yes, my underlying point is separating AI inherently good, AI inherently bad, to AI is just AI. How we use it and how we regulate it and how it affects people is the important one.
I mean, I think like it's with all these big technologies like the internet. The internet is not inherently a good or a bad thing. There's plenty of examples of people using the internet for incredibly bad things and people using the internet for incredibly good things. So, I mean, we'll be sort of like new tools. You just have to like we're just at an early stage where there's no legislation or no framework of how to understand the correct way of using these sort of.
No, definitely. I think what doesn't help is you get a lot of companies want to push and hype AI.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they wanted to use it to replace things and like we can do this and that and this, and you just can't.
No.
It's not even the case of like, oh, you can in some or it's a lot of work. You just can't. You just can't.
That's quite encouraging to hear, to be honest. Like, I think, again, it's this kind of fear of, like, eventually AI is going to replace us and all that sort of thing. And it's like, no, because you still need that human interaction.
There's a very good video essay I watched on this. I can't remember the creator who made it. It might have been Folding Ideas, or maybe I can't remember. It was like the whole idea was like you can't. Oh, it's so dangerous. You can't. Don't look at AI. It's going to destroy the world. Don't. But I've got this really new AI tool. Do you want to have a look at it? But it's so dangerous. People shouldn't be looking.
It might be the same video. Philosophy 2 put out a great
Oh
video on
yeah,
it.
that might be who I'm thinking of. It was yeah, but like the whole sort of idea of like hyping up AI by saying that it's going to destroy the world. But have you seen my AI? What I've been working on? It's like using this like idea of like it's just awful and going to change everything is like as a marketing tool.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of good sociology papers and books on pushing AI as this fearful thing, which is going to be all-encompassing and horrendous, works because it's essentially saying, hey, but that means my new technology is going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have every respect for the fact that you're not only doing a PhD and having to try and explain that to your parents and family, because I think that's a hard enough thing I find is like, no, yes, it is 4 years. It's not just another one. Having to then explain the AI element on top of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think my parents were like, "Oh, so when do you think you're gonna start asking?" I'm like, "Don't, I'm not gonna start asking that soon. Don't ask." And I was like, "Never ask someone doing a PhD that question. That's a bad question. You don't ever ask anyone."
I was can't remember what shop it was, but I was just shopping somewhere in Bath, and I was like chatting to the cashier, and I had to pull up my student ID to like get a student discount, and she was like, "Oh, still a student?" I was like, "Oh yeah. Well, I'm doing a PhD," and she's like, "Oh, you're going to be a doctor? Yeah. When does that finish? 2028? Oh, not worth it. Not worth it."
Yes, I guess it's so like my student ID is like for some reason it's like it's an extra year compared to everybody else joining.
Don't keep the student discount.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would quite like it if my end date was 2028. That feels like far enough in the future that I don't have to worry about it. And I'm thinking like, no, it's like 2025.
Oh, I suppose that is the flip side of that.
Yes,
I don't have to worry about my end date now.
And I think that's the thing, whereas some people go like, oh no, it's too long. Like, no, don't even. Whereas I'm like, no, I like the fact that I don't have to think about the next step for that long.
Yeah, it's a nice. It's almost like a nice buffer.
Yes.
I'm in steady employment for the next, 2.5 years at this point. I don't need to stress.
Yeah. Okay. So we've had another question in chat asking what type of maths we're doing for our PhD. Is it pure, applied, and in what fields? So I guess we will quickly, for the purposes of our chat, maybe if we give like a brief, just introduction to what we do, and then we can talk a little more about your PhD as well, which segues nicely into yeah. Okay.
So
you want to go first?
Sure.
Go first.
So yeah, I'm Henry. I'm a second year on the maths department Samba CDT, but first year doing research. And I study fluid dynamics. I'm studying essentially you have like a fluid going down a channel. There's like some step or some topography at the bottom, and I'm studying the waves generated on the surface of that fluid, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm Beth. I'm second year research, third year like PhD course. So I'm a year ahead of Henry, effectively. Although it doesn't sometimes feel like it with progress, but anyway, that's another issue. One term I study the collective behaviour of Trinidadian guppy fish. So they're a really sort of unique, I suppose, small species of fish that have some unique dynamics. So I'm looking at how we can use maths to model their behaviour in different like settings. So, yeah. But we're both applied mathematicians, which is the nature of our CDT. So yeah.
So
Oh.
I'm first year PhD.
Mhm.
That should be first year MRes, no research.
No
Yeah.
research
I'm
there.
also doing research.
Research year -1.
Yeah,
Research year-
oh, no, yeah. Research year -2. So I'm in reinforcement learning.
Mhm.
We imagine a big umbrella is AI.
Mhm.
And then maybe a step down from that would be machine learning,
Yeah.
which is what lots of places you would see AI is machine learning.
Mhm.
Image, the very like the old method now, and I can't believe I'm saying it's old, is like image recognition. Is this picture a cat or a dog?
Yeah.
Bit of text, what does it say? Recognition, very basic machine learning. What reinforcement learning is instead is getting AIs to solve tasks. So if we imagine we have some problem,
Mhm.
and that can be useful to think of it in like games, so like a chessboard or lots of crosses, but it could be driving a car or just like the world around us.
Mhm.
And we call that the environment.
Yeah.
And the agent sees the environment, sort of like an image of it. We
Mhm.
call that a state. The agent takes the state and decides to do some action. Turn left in the car,
Mhm.
move this piece in chess, grab a mug from a shelf.
Okay.
That's an action.
Mhm.
Do that. It says, "Hey, environment, here's what I do," and the environment goes, "Here's the state you do end up in. You know, you've grabbed the mug, you've turned left, but you ran a red light.
Mhm.
You know, the opponent in the chess piece takes your piece or whatever, gets some reward back from it.
Okay.
You were meant to save that piece. You took the
Yeah.
wrong turn. You grabbed the right mug, and the agent is trying to maximize that reward. And that is the framework of reinforcement learning.
Right. Okay. So I guess it's going back to all those that I'm thinking now, like the biological, I guess, experiments
Exactly.
with like mice and
Yeah.
like teaching them to press the button to get the reward and
Exactly.
that sort of thing, but with computers, I
Yes.
guess. Yeah. Okay.
So the area I do is called hierarchical skill discovery.
Okay.
So suppose we ask, how does humans make a cup of tea?
Mhm.
You don't go, no,
That's a debate in itself.
no, but set it aside from that. So you don't go, no tea, tea.
Mhm.
You probably go, well, I got a kettle on, I put kettle on,
Mhm.
I get a mug, put the tea bag in,
Yeah.
water, milk, tea.
Yeah.
But how does the computer make a cup of tea? Because it probably doesn't go kettle, whatever. It's got
Yeah.
to do the individual steps.
Mhm.
It's got to know what a kettle is. It has to know where to get water from. It has to know which tea to pick. It has to know how to pick up a mug
Mhm.
without breaking it, and that you've
Yeah.
got to put it the right way up. And then in that, you've also it's got to individually move the motors in its hand to do all those things. A lot of AI and reinforcement learning applications are in that phase where it's doing the individual actions.
Okay.
Hierarchical reinforcement learning says, don't do that. What if we could train an AI in the terms of get a mug,
Mhm.
of a kettle, pour water,
Mhm.
and it develops that hierarchy of like big actions in the way humans would think about them
Mhm.
and converts them into the actions that robots would think about them.
Okay.
It's that hierarchy. We call those big actions skills.
Mhm.
But of course, the question arises, what are useful skills in certain problems? We can't, not in all problems can we develop those skills themselves.
Mhm.
And what about cases where we think we have a good set of skills, but they might not be? And what about cases where we just want the AI to figure them out themselves?
Mhm.
I'm currently working in the area of figuring out those skills. So how do we decide what are useful sub-goals for an agent?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So it's breaking the problem down into more attainable little
Exactly.
tasks. Okay.
Exactly. And then the ART-AI aspect of that is, well, if an AI is thinking in terms of cattle,
Mhm.
tea, we understand its actions better.
Yes.
We
Yeah.
understand what it's doing maybe
Okay.
better than if it was just working in move left hand up,
Mhm.
you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So I guess, like you say, and did this come about from your like undergraduate master's project where you said that you were looking at like teaching an AI how to play a board game? Is that kind of where
It was that sort of gave me the intro to RL
Okay.
and that like framework.
Yeah.
And it's the hierarchical RL is the research my supervisor for my Joshua did, my supervisor for my undergrad, and it's a big area of the research that my now supervisor Oscar Simchek works on. They introduced me to it, but they also sort of introduced me to a bunch of other areas in it, and that was the one which sort of I grasped onto first.
Okay.
I did a project on it in my master's year, and I'm currently working on a paper which sort of is a continuation of that project.
Yeah. I guess it's nice, like you say, even though technically we're not doing research in first year, it's nice to sort of keep your toe in the water, I guess.
Yeah,
'Cause
definitely.
I think sometimes having that MRes break from you do like little bits, we do sort of group projects and that sort of thing, but getting stuck into something.
No,
is-
definitely.
Yeah. Okay. We've had another question in the chat. Henry, can you read that from the
No, I can't. It's
Okay.
big contrasting colours of
No,
white on black. Is
that's fine. So it says, I'm looking for general advice on how to get into AI safety research. I have intent on getting a BS, then a PhD in physics, and happily spending my life studying that. But looking at the latest advances in AI makes me want to help build safe AI instead. I'm also a self-taught programmer, so that also helps. So yeah. So what advice would you have on getting into AI safety research?
My not advice, but initially that's a fantastic thing. Lots of people now want to do.
Yes.
Lots of places are looking for not just AI research, but sort of AI research specifically on safety.
Yeah.
I would self-taught programming is fantastic. I don't think I'm of the opinion that the only way to truly learn programming is to teach it yourself. Um, so having a master's in potentially something like you would probably want it a little bit mathsy. A lot of people take from data science courses or just like a computer science master's, something where you are working directly with some form of machine learning and going from there. And then I think it's the case of trying to get in touch with the big researchers in the field. It's easy to work out if you are interested in that AI safety and going from there. I think the first step would be whether you do your undergrad and then a master's, but like getting that master's in data science, machine learning, something related. That would be my advice.
Have you heard of the ART-AI CDT?
Like a bit of shameless advertising. Yeah. But no, I think you're right. Like we all talk about how AI is becoming a big thing, and actually, as AI progresses, we need people's understanding of it to progress, and the people researching how we make it safe. It's such an important thing. So yeah.
I mean, I say the last bit, it was one before that, a paper we just published from not just part of ART-AI, the research lab I'm part of is a BARF reinforcement learning research lab. And we just published, I wasn't part of it, but we just published a paper on using Shapley values in RL. And Shapley values are a thing from economy studies and business studies to explain business decisions. And the idea is that they just applied that to what actions an agent was taking to say, oh, it valued this action highly because of this, this, and this, and it was doing this because of this, this, and this. So there's a big demand for research on explaining what AI is doing and justifying not only when it's going well, but also when it makes weird and bad decisions.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, like, what sort of like maths are involved? Another sort of question we're chatting about sort of like the maths, because you said you did like, your maths and computer science undergrad. How much of your sort of maths background are you pulling into?
Quite a bit. So a lot of, I think there's a section of AI and specifically reinforcement learning research, because it's a particularly new field of what maths can we get to do well on this problem. Just pulling almost random areas of maths and seeing it, if it works. More specifically, you use a heck of a lot of linear algebra. And that crops up everywhere, but you do use a lot of linear algebra. You use a little bit of topology. So I'm starting to work on topology. If you imagine you have your environment and you can use topology to describe the shape of that problem.
Okay.
And then you can study the shape of that problem.
And you can study like lines on your problem space to go between states and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The two big areas I'm working on are graphs and networks, and also information theory.
Okay.
So graphs and networks, because you can develop a graph of your problem, involve the nodes on it, and then study that to say what skills are useful and which ones aren't so useful. But also you can use information theory to try and, instead of viewing your problem as a graph, try and ask the question, how much information can we give the agent when it's making decisions? We don't necessarily say want it to act the best right now, but can we get it to act so that it knows or is the most confident about what it's doing? And we use areas of information theory to do that.
Okay. Interesting.
I would say if you want to refine a bit of maths to then use it in reinforcement learning, linear algebra. It comes up everywhere, but that seems to be the one I keep coming back to.
Okay. Yeah. So that's like I guess the tools of the trade sort of thing. Like if you have those as your basic skill set, then yeah.
It's because of a lot of people background in the labs is either straight computer science and then RL, or another discipline, potentially maths, then data science, and then RL. Because I've come straight from maths and computer science, I've become the mathsy girl in the lab.
Right.
So whenever somebody has like a maths problem, I'm the first one I come to.
Yeah, whatever you do, don't start sending them over to us. Like you're probably going to be so much better at answering it than we are. But no, I just, as you were talking, then it was like it struck me how all of the areas of maths that you mentioned, so like linear algebra, graphs and networks. There was one of these topology. Like in my head, they're like the purest parts of maths.
Yeah.
And yet AI reinforcement learning is probably one of the most applied.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, my mind is blown. Like, but so how do you get from that kind of these really pure and abstract concepts, and I guess translating them into such an applied thing?
I'll give a very direct example. Suppose you can think about the problem, the environment, the task you want an AI to solve. That's a big network of graphs. And you can think about, say, and it's such a joke in the RL community, say we split it up, we just have like 4 separate rooms and like the little doorways between them. You're laughing, you've seen this story in before. You can, as humans, we go, that's 4 separate rooms. Maybe a higher level skill would be getting between the rooms or whatever. But you can use graph clustering algorithms that will separate the rooms for you. You can do what I'm trying to do and say, if you get to the middle of the rooms, you can then go to the rest of the room around them. All of that is using your graph theory. You can take that graph and turn it into a matrix. And then we're in the domain of linear algebra. And you can work all on that. You could scrap the graph idea, and a lot of people call it just you can think about it in terms of a linear space, and then you get a set of linear basis functions which describe that space, and you can do lots of different cool maths on that to pull skills and things. It's about how do I take my problem and how do I stop thinking about it in human terms and convert it into useful maths language. And you can do that in a couple of different ways, but every way you do it will reveal something new.
Okay. Yeah.
Interesting. So as part of our CDT, we do like these industrial think tanks. So like industrial partners will come in for a week and spend trying to solve challenges. The one we did in January, we had one of the partners was this company called Camera Forensics, and they do a lot of like image processing for the police. So one of the challenges I was working on was given like they want to like give a picture of somewhere indoors. There's already like an AI out there which can like give you a fairly good guess of what country this image comes from. Like so, like it was like I think like you had like a picture of a UK kitchen and guess UK kitchen. Picture of a Swedish kitchen, and it was showing you recognise this as a Swedish kitchen. And you were trying. They were like, this is all well and good, but if police or someone needs to use it, they need to be able to like have the AI explain itself. Like, why does it think this is a UK kitchen as opposed to like an American kitchen or whatever? And there's like obviously like features as a human you might know, like so like in the UK, a lot of times we have a washing machine. It's a very UK thing to have a washing machine in your kitchen, which basically nowhere else in the world has washing machines in their kitchen. So I'd done no, I took it as a challenge. I had no idea like any AI stuff, and I think like the first day was like trying to work out how can I turn this into like a maths problem. Yeah, but like again, it's like whole explainability of AI and stuff, and like converting it into like something that is doable from like a maths background.
Yes, yeah, and using those tools that we've
Yeah,
all these areas of pure maths that we've had to and apply that kind of
yes,
context. It's a massive problem. A lot of AI systems and machine learning systems are black box systems.
yes,
The idea is that you can't look in them. You give it some input, like where's this image in the kitchen? You expect an output, and it can give you an output, but you can't see why it made the decision
I mean,
it
like,
did.
there's like sort of explainability. The term explainable AI is a bit of an oxymoron in terms of AIs which can explain themselves are very, very difficult to do and go against. Essentially, what an AI is very good at is you give it a big data set and it sort of sets itself up in some like just crunches through this data set in a million different ways to work out the best way of interpreting it. And then like you then ask to like how it did it, but I did it by trying, by doing lots of different combinations incredibly quickly.
It can't justify the choices it's making.
Okay. Okay. So, I guess going back a little bit more. Oh, wait, rather before me asking, we have a question in chat. How are you all finding PhD life? Is it different to what you expected before joining the program? And sorry, I'm waiting for Seb to type it out. And also, have you all chosen the problem for your main thesis? Okay, so I guess this kind of links into what I was going to ask you next anyway. I was going to say, how have you found that transition from like undergrad and masters into the PhD? Even though I guess there's been a little bit of overlap in terms of doing some research and doing some stuff all the way through. But yeah, how have you found that?
It has been difficult at times, but also really rewarding. I am in that weird position where I felt like the biggest change was between. I felt like I went to change from my undergrad to my master's year because I was kind of on my what it felt like an MRes year then because I was doing modules, but also like I was working on my master's dissertation and all that. It's less. It's less having like lots and lots of things happening and feeling sort of overwhelmed with time and more learning how to manage that time. So, because there is that big jump of like you go from doing almost just like your master's work or your undergrad where you have X number of modules and whatever to not only having the modules but the responsibilities of the CDT. Be that around, in my case, doing the research at the same time or doing other things with the CDT. It's a step, but it's a doable step.
Yeah. I think if you've done a master's and you've been exposed to research at some point during that anyway, I guess it's like you've had to learn some element of like time management, all of that.
I found like because I did like the MMaths, I did integrated masters at Bath in the MMath where you do a project over 1 year. Like the project, as much as like yourself motivated research, it was still very much of okay, it's a accredited module, so you should only be spending like 6 hours a week on this thing. As opposed to jumping into PhD where I'm spending all of my hours a week on this thing. That's Phil doesn't watch this, so I definitely do spend all my hours doing research, not other things. But yeah, I found it like I don't know personally. I found especially the first few months have just been like quite difficult in terms of just like it's like I can't just it's not like a master's problem where it's like oh yeah this is easily solvable. It's like oh yeah by definition of a PhD it is not it's not a simple solution. And a solution may not exist, or how you get to a solution is difficult.
The two best advice I got from my supervisor was one, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You burn yourself out in the first month, you will not make it.
Oh yeah, no.
And your ideas, don't think about the things you research as your ideas. You get this massive thing, particularly in reinforcement learning and ML, of making AI improving the way we solve a task or whatever, and you can get really strongly attached to this is my algorithm, this is this, and it might just not work, and that's fine. But it's like a useful bit of scientific research of this angle doesn't work. But if you get too attached to them, it becomes disheartening, and then you want it to work.
Yeah, I mean,
you've got to separate the ideas you
Yeah.
work on and you.
But like the thing is, the null result is a good
Yeah.
result. I mean, I think it's not something you see like a lot in maths, but I know obviously like in the more sort of standard sciences, so physics, chemistry, and stuff, doing an experiment and proving that something doesn't work or is not the answer
Yeah.
is actually a fair like
Mhm.
PhD, and people spend time basically proving something didn't work.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've ever heard of someone like in a maths department, a PhD was like them showing why a method didn't work for this problem.
Yeah, right.
I did all this work and it didn't work. You know, I suspect you could write a legitimate thesis of here's this method, you apply it to this problem. In the beginning we thought this problem would work and it didn't. And here's a mathematical reason of why it didn't work.
Mhm.
I don't think anybody's like I've not ever heard of anybody doing a thesis like that. I don't see why.
No, I guess it's like
Proving
you say, you can't hold on to the fact that these things are going to work. Like when you have
Yeah.
these ideas, you have to accept that sometimes they're not going to work.
Yeah.
And I guess some people have luck of the draw. Some people just have experiences where things just don't work again and again and again.
Yeah.
And so you say like you must
Yeah.
be able to make something of that,
I
and it
like
is your
if you
PhD.
just manage to like have nothing work for your entire PhD, there must be like you must still be able to like write something up like I don't know, this must be like a you know theorem.
Yeah.
Maybe not. Let's not
Let's
test
not be
that theory.
pessimistic, so yeah.
There is a massive, in the reinforcement learning lab here, there's a massive thing of, did you get bad results, but they were okay? That's fine. You'll only get really good results about a week before you need to publish. And that's normal and that's fine.
There's always hope there.
I do sometimes find though, like a lot of times it's like, oh, I've got some like bandy work code, I can sort of fudge it a bit. And like a lot of I do find like there's a culture of you have to have like something which we expect to work and actually showing or going giving to like, oh, I've tried this method and it's not worked.
Mhm.
Here's my code not working is something which you never see anybody give a talk about, like why trying to like explain why something didn't work.
Mhm.
It's only ever it's worked. Congratulations to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Which would be nice to see some like a slight cultural change of like
Mhm.
people presenting work which hasn't worked.
Yeah. I think it gets certainly for PhD students when we are in that phase of like trying everything out to just see academics, and I guess that's what's the point of behind the research a little bit
Mm.
more, is to show that not everything is always the polished end result. But I think it would be nice, I guess, to see a little bit more of that. Can you imagine going to a conference and people just present everything
Failed
that just didn't
ideas.
work?
Oh, that'd be a great
Well,
conference.
Good.
I
It
think
would.
I forget what the number is, but like I think it's like the papers that get published in Nature, their like rejection rate is something like they get rejected something like 3 to 5 times,
Mm.
and then they get into Nature. So
Yeah.
but you never see that. You just see that they got into Nature.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, definitely. So I think we touched on this a little bit. So follow-up question in chat was, have we all chosen the main problem for our thesis? So Samba as a CDT is like we come in, we have the MRes year, and we don't have a set project for that year. We're expected to then find a supervisor and set the project sort of at the end of that year, where we do like a thesis formulation report, and that's like our master's project.
Mhm.
So is ART-AI is ART-AI the same?
So when you apply, it's advised and suggested that you have some semblance of a thesis you want to write. But there's a hidden rule
Mhm.
where like you apply and you might think this thing and like you want to do research on this and this, and then when you come in a year later, it's okay if it changes.
Okay.
You know, 2 years in, it's so nobody's expecting somebody coming in doing, oh, I'm going to do machine learning or chemistry to completely flip and go, actually, I'm going to do sociology.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
No, but they might do research on chemistry in a little slightly different way, or this. So there is a suggestion to come in with
Okay.
a strong idea, but it can switch. And oftentimes, you find there's like two groups of people, and they tend to be sort of the engineering disciplines, having like a very core focused problem to work on. But then I imagine in engineering, those are easier to pick apart,
Mm.
or like find. And people who want to work on a specific area, like explainable AI or hierarchical reinforcement learning, skill discovery, and it doesn't matter the specific thing they do in that area, but they stay in that area,
Okay.
and they sort of find their feet on what they want to do. We have the same thing a year in. You do your like thesis formulation, you get an idea, but then even after that, if it changes, that's so okay.
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 Yeah. So I guess similar in the sense,
Similar,
except
but
for having that initial
yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it might also just come with kind of like because AI is such a rapidly changing field. I'm sure you could find that
all the
what you're
time.
working on is completely different from year on year. So
Yeah.
I think probably a bit more flexibility in that program is probably required.
And I think this is a guess from me, but behind the scenes, they like to suggest people to apply with a one project in mind because the thought isn't sort of like, oh, we'll accept this person because that's a really interesting project. It's, oh, somebody who could see that project
Yeah.
and envision it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if they do that, but they can see other projects, and that
Yeah.
ability to see that is what we care about.
Yeah. I think that's a nice way of looking at it. So was the project that you applied with, was that a follow-up from what you've
Yes.
been working on? Yeah.
So I'm trying to unify two different groups of skill discovery. One the graph-based and one the information-based.
Okay.
Lots of methods. It tends to be the graph-based methods work really well, and they pick really skills which humans we find really understandable and make sense, but it's really hard to transfer them to other problems, and they can be pretty computationally intense. Whereas the ones in information theory are pretty quick to discover, and they're really easy to transfer to other problems, or easier, I should say, but they make absolutely no sense to humans.
Right.
And AI makes them, and it goes, these are useful, and as humans, they make no sense.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to bring those ideas together.
Okay, that's interesting. And do you see that sort of at the minute that's sort of, it's not changing, that's sort of staying as is for now?
For maybe at least maybe the next couple of months, yes.
Yes.
After that could change. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I see it as the immediate yes, but in the future, I'm not gonna,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna hold on to it too much.
Yeah. Which is probably healthy, and as you say, like, it's nice to have the flexibility.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Another question from chat is how important is the role of a supervisor in choosing the right problem? I feel like everyone has different opinions on this, and I know in the maths department people have different opinions on what's more important, the supervisor or the problem.
But so I don't know, maybe I'm interpreting this differently, but as in, like, once you've already got your PhD problem,
Yeah.
like, how important, how much does your supervisor help you, or should they help you
formulate
in, like, maybe try this method or maybe try that method? But
I don't know. I sort of interpret it as like, so in maths, it's very much you pick a supervisor and they're like, I work in these areas, you can work in these areas too.
Yeah.
So it's not, so I didn't go to my supervisor like, I want to do this thing. Can you supervise me doing this? It was, I like fluid dynamics, you do fluid dynamics, what problems do you have open in fluid dynamics? And I picked one of those. So
I think in computer science, well, not AI in computer science, is that it's your supervisor matters. Your relationship with your supervisor matters much more than the thing you are specifically researching. It's always going to be in the same domain and field. I don't think anyone would disagree with me and say that Oscar is not the RL person. But there are a couple of people PhD students in computer science doing computer science, but not they don't have Oscar as their supervisor. Because I think that relationship matters much more. And I think lots of supervisors in around ART-AI, where they cater to potentially just like a slightly wider pool. There's engineering supervisors, and if you're working in like fluid dynamics with machine learning, you could have lots of different problems within that. But that relationship matters more because your problem could change.
I mean, like, and also with supervisor, it has to be someone you get on with because you're going to spend hundreds of hours with this person. And if you hate this person, probably don't pick them as a supervisor because you're going to have to be in a room with them, having like intense conversations about research for hundreds of hours.
I mean, the fact that you worked with your supervisors prior to doing the PhD, right? It's like you've already had the trial run. You know that you get on.
It was big. After I knew I wanted to do a PhD. It's the big reason I stayed at Bath. Instead of doing an internship with a company, I did it with the reinforcement learning labs. So I already had that. Get on with these people, and not only do I get on with them, they're the kind of work I want to be doing, and so I had that like trial run, as you say.
Okay. So I was going to ask next. You say obviously big reason that you stayed at Bath, but what were some of the reasons that drew you to Bath in the first place?
So I come from South Wales. Bath is not too far particularly.
Yeah.
When I was
Yeah.
applying in my undergrad, I was always worried. I was worried about something going wrong. So I wanted to be away from home, but also have the option of coming back fairly easily.
Yeah.
Looking back, advice I would give to my younger self and other people looking, you can do this, look further afield.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
probably would have stayed at Bath. I probably would have still picked Bath, but I limited my search because I thought something was going to go wrong. Look further afield.
I mean, yeah, because I picked Bath because of like my godmother lives in Bath, it's a city I knew well.
Yeah.
So basically, all the places I looked at was like I either like I didn't want to be too close to home, but I wanted to be close to some like family.
Yeah.
So like it was like Bath or York and stuff. So for me, like I don't know, I feel like it's important. I don't know. It's whatever you're comfortable with ultimately. Because
Yes.
but for me, it was important to be like far enough away from home that like I was challenging myself and pushing myself, but like close enough to like places I knew. So I was like, okay, fine. I know like my uncle's here or my godmum is like in Bath, so
It is that aspect of comfort because a
yeah.
big reason why I chose to stay on was I find Bath quite a safe city. And a lot of why I find it a safe city is because I know it so well.
Yeah.
You know, I've been here for 5 years now. I know Bath like the back of my hand. That safety doesn't come inherently from Bath.
Yeah.
It comes with the fact of me knowing it.
Yeah.
And that was a big reason why I chose to stay on.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, like you say, it's familiarity.
Yes,
And I think I possibly would have stayed at my undergraduate institution given the choice. But then they didn't have like the right funding in the right places at the time. And it's like, actually, now I'm quite glad because I've ended up here.
Yeah.
And yeah. So it's, I guess, everyone has different reasons for where they want to go and where they want to be. But, right. So I guess I know you're very early into the PhD, and we don't have to think about that 2028 finish. But do you have any like wider aspirations? Like what, like sort of, I guess, castle in the cloud kind of ideas of career post PhD, or not that we have to think about it yet, but I guess do you have any?
I know you get beat mine straight away.
Yeah.
um it seems to be a big split in RTA of people for CS and engineering side at least, people who want to go into industry after this, or people who want to stay in academia. I think I am in the group of wanting to stay in academia. A lot of people go into quantitative finance trading with this skill set. I'm gonna stay out of that. It's not something I'm interested in at all.
Yeah.
But whether that's in academia or in industry, I know I want to keep researching. This is what I like doing.
Yeah.
This is not good for me to say, but I often think about the question I sometimes ask myself is like, if tomorrow it comes along proven that like all RL will only get so far, would you, like it's kind of like a pointless discipline? Do you keep researching? And I go, yeah, because I'm in it for the fun problems, not for like the goal at the end.
Yeah.
So whether that is academia or industry, I would like to keep researching. I do a lot of tutoring in the department, and I think I'm in the minority where like I wouldn't mind doing some lecturing or like see where that goes. Future wise, it's all about the research for me.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think, like you say, it's good that you don't have to make a decision yet, but the fact that you're already so passionate about research and know that that's something that you want in whatever career you end up.
I think that's more the important thing. You don't have to have like, oh, I'm definitely going to do this or this after. If you know the area of what you want to do, for sure, maybe like for sure PhD was nice, but I want to take those skills to industry job, either finance trading or being just like an AI engineer and using those skills wherever you want to go with it, as long as you have a rough idea on that area or you want to stay in research like me, that's the more important thing rather than having a specific target.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's just like PhD just gives you such good passive skills of like I've spent 3 years or 3 years researching, being self-motivated. At the end of it, I wrote, a huge technical report on what I spent the last 3 years doing. I had like can give talks and explain stuff like, I definitely feel like even doing something like in industry, a PhD is like industry look at PhDs like, okay, you actually have like all these soft skills which are needed in industry, even if you don't do anything related to your work.
You've developed all these really additional auxiliary skills.
Yeah.
Are you gonna read the chat?
So what's that? Somebody who likes physics, have a vigor of maths gives more satisfaction. Do a lack of vigor in other subjects bother you, e.g., term time learning it, satisfaction, etc.
So I was thinking maybe this is a good question for you, Scarllette, given that you started off sort of in that kind of physicsy mindset and switched to maths. So like, does the lack of so you like it was the person in chat likes the rigor of maths.
Yeah.
So does a lack of rigor in other subjects bother you? I guess.
It does. There's a lot of specifically in RL. There's a side of RL which is trying to prove that like a lot of these, we call them learning algorithms. A lot of these learning algorithms work. If you run this for enough times with an agent, you will get, it will find the optimal solution. Yada yada. And there's another field which is, we tried this because we think it's cool. Change it a bit. Look, it works. Why does it work?
Okay.
It works. And while it does bother me, and I think having that rigor is like really important and really valuable, I think it is a skill that I have become good at rigor. While it still bothers me, it doesn't affect what I do. There is always usefulness to just trying a thing and seeing if it works. That is like the fundamental thing of science. It does a bowling ball fall faster than a feather? Oh no, let's drop them and find out. And then let's figure out the equations and the reasons afterwards. You got to try it to find out. I think it's good. It's a good idea if it bothers you. I think that's a very useful eye and vision to have. Don't let it stop you from doing things or trying things. You can always prove the rigor afterwards. If you try it and it works, you can always try and explain it afterwards.
I think there's a difference between like mathematical rigor, like being technically correct with everything, and also being like, I think there's a difference between that sort of mathematical vigor. Whenever I think about like almost like the pure algebra stuff, when I think about like vigor, but then also just being precise with what you're doing. And like going through things like mathematically precisely in terms of like understanding something, so doing it correctly, as opposed to, obviously that's vigor, but I don't see them as the same thing. Because I don't think the maths idea is particularly quote unquote rigorous. From like, I don't think a pure mathematician is going to see what I do and think it's particularly vigorous. As described, I do vibes-based mathematics. If my solution looks correct, it's probably fine.
Yeah, I don't think that will quite pass for like a 200-page
Vibes-based.
thesis.
It's vibes-based.
All on vibes.
Roughly vibes-based.
To be fair, like, so in my project I do, so asymptotics, we take these fluid dynamics equations and reduce them to such like a basic thing. You can't do an experiment on it. So the way you test it, if you've got a good answers, you run it on a computer, then you do it and just see if it vaguely looks the same.
I guess, like you say, you can have a little bit both. Like, don't be afraid to just try things and then figure it out afterwards.
Exactly. I think it's a good, like, if you need to have that rigorous mindset, it is amazing if you can do that and be really precise. But you've got to try both and don't let it stop you.
I guess that's how like the majority of us learn in some sense. Like a PhD is first and foremost about learning. Like you're not expected to know everything and to be able to do everything rigorously to start off with. So maybe like trying it out is sometimes the only way that you learn.
Definitely.
More vibes.
More vibes, as Henry would like to put it.
In your research.
Okay. Yeah, we have a couple more questions in chat I can see. So there's one that says, are job positions in academia rare compared to other fields? And I think
the way I've had it explained to me is like, if you imagine like doing academia is like joining like a football team in terms of like the difficulty between doing steps, it's like doing like doing a maths undergrad is like sort of, you have to be good at maths, but you don't have to be a savant or like be exceptional to do maths at undergrad. Like you just have to enjoy it, and you will be able to do well in maths undergrad. If you enjoy maths, you could do a maths undergrad easily. But then like the next step up is like joining like a semi-professional team. It's doable if you put the effort in. It's hard, but it is a commitment.
What is it? This is an insane quote. It's from the movie Moneyball. We've all got to stop playing the kids game at some point.
Yeah.
It's about
Yeah.
baseball.
Yeah.
And some of us are told that when we're 15, and some of us are told that when we're 45.
Yeah.
And we all got to stop it at some point.
Yeah, and it's like going into academia is like, again, it's like joining like a Premier League football club.
Yeah.
It's just there's just less people of it. It's like I think in my masters there was like no, in my like intake there was like maybe 200 people doing maths, maybe 50 or 60 of them did the M math, and then actually maybe now only 20 of them are doing PhDs anywhere. And how many of those people like who
Will stay in academia, will...
probably only like go on to do a postdoc, probably 10 out, 50% probably do postdoc, and then postdoc to academic conversion. I'm not sure.
I think it's in terms of the competition gets harder as you go higher up.
Yeah.
But I guess in some ways that's potentially true of industry jobs as well.
Yes.
But I think maybe if you're coming, say that you've already got a PhD, so it's like us guys when we're gonna end up looking for jobs after the PhD, we would probably, I don't know, there'd probably be plenty of opportunities in both academia and industry, depending on what compromises you're willing to make.
Yeah, I think that's...
So I think it's, what sort of job you want, where you want to be in life, and all of those sorts of factors that you have to take into consideration. Like, I guess if you're happy to go and move to London, then you can probably have your pick of
You'll be happy.
Yeah.
I think it's also, it can be massively affected by discipline.
Mm-hmm.
You get there's a lot of industry jobs for if you have like computer science PhD. But there's I don't know exactly, but there's probably a higher demand for academia jobs because a lot of people with the computer science based PhD would rather go into industry or for whatever reason, even though academia really needs them.
Yes,
and there was a big thing I think in universities struggling to getting people. So I know the maths department is wanting some maths professor who's a specialist in ML.
Yeah.
But nobody in the maths, like academia wise, is like a super ML specialist. They're just other people who are like trained in like another bit of maths and now do ML
rather than
someone who's
I think because it's quite, I suppose, not necessarily new, but it's gained a lot of traction recently.
No, definitely.
So I think for somebody, unless you've been in like a computer science department and you've been in like reinforcement learning or machine learning for quite a long time, certainly in a maths department, you're not going to get somebody that's at professor level applying for those jobs. It's kind of like you've got to wait for the young blood to make their way through. Yeah,
and you get that massively in computer science, and well, massively more so in machine learning and RL, because on the timescales of disciplines, these things are babies. This is really, really new, you know. We've got like ML researchers who like have been doing this for like 20 years.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, that's not that long. Not that long.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm referencing papers which are, in the 60s.
Whereas
and my area of research is seen as like a new area of research.
Whereas we've got the always working on a paper called check last year's.
Yeah.
Check last year's. You better make sure last year's are all on there.
Yeah, you've got to, I guess, probably so much more on top of the lit reviews than we are.
Yeah.
Knowing that there's new stuff coming
out. There's a little bit of like following celebrities aspect of it.
Okay.
Because our reinforcement learning properly is even like newer. It's, I mean, the maths comes back from the 80s and 90s, but it's only sort of properly kicked off within the last 10 or 15 years.
Yeah.
You know? So it's following these big RL names and like treating them like they're celebrities and
then there's always that element of like when you actually meet them or see them in a distance at a conference and it's so there's again another question from chat, which is relating a little bit back to previous conversation. So do you have any advice on getting like in the mood to go with the flow and getting unstuck on a problem or because of rigor satisfaction?
I love the technique of rubber ducking. So do we know what rubber duck programming is?
No idea.
Not programming, no. I've heard of the phrase rubber ducking, but maybe if you explain.
So the idea is that it originates from programming. The idea is that you're programming, you put a little rubber duck on your desk, and if you're getting stuck with code and it's not working, you turn to your rubber duck and you rubber duck, I'm having some problems with my code. But you just you don't look for a solution. That's not what you do. You just talk through the problem, and then you talk about what your code is doing. You don't go, rubber duck, this bit's not working because of this. You go, rubber duck, I'm trying to solve this matrix multiplication. And I'm putting these numbers in this way, and as you're talking, most of the time you'll go, oh, wait, I shouldn't be putting my numbers in that way. I should be doing this. And that's not fair. I've tried rubber ducking with hoovering things. And it's less of a hit rate. It doesn't always work, but it can reveal that. Don't focus on finding a solution. Just talk through what you've done. And that is a hard skill, differentiating between what you've done and finding a solution. But if you just talk through what you've done, oftentimes the gap from where you've been, or just maybe a slip up if you can't find out where you found where the problem is, that can help.
Okay. I do actually have a rubber duck on my desk, so maybe I will try that.
If I hear Dan McCoy doing it, rubber duck.
Yeah, my supervisor gave it to me, so I'm not sure I should take that as like a hint, or I don't know.
But sort of, it's something, you know, I feel like the whole thing of research is the science of getting unstuck. I feel like inherently you're always stuck, and I feel like the more you do research, the more sort of like ways you can diagnose, like, what kind of stuck are you? Is it like I'm stuck because of this method no longer actually works? In which case you might be stuck. Was it because of, like, I don't know, it's just like in the same ways it takes a while to learn how to debug and what, like, my code's doing this weird thing, what does this actually mean, and where to look? There's like half my meetings are going to a public forum, and my supervisor's like, yeah, we just tried this one simple trick to unstuck something. Like, oh no, I didn't know this was like a good idea to do. And I think like learning how to do that is good. I do think there's also, I think if you are just stuck, just stop for the day, go do something else, go have a walk, go just do literally anything else which is not your work, and then come back to it tomorrow or come back to it in a few hours, because you might not have actually been stuck. You might have just been like tired and a bit fatigued of doing research.
There's I can't believe I can't remember the author's name, but there's this lovely book called Zen of Motorcycle Repair. And it's about this guy who his day job is like he repairs and rides motorcycles. Also, he's like practicing, like he teaches meditation classes and like doing Zen, and he talks about specifically getting stuck and how you get unstuck. And it's this story about doing this very complicated wheel replacement on a bike, and he just can't loosen one bolt. And it's so frustrating. He wants to do XYZ on his bike and all these complicated things, and he just can't get this bolt off. And it's about reframing the problem, not as changing the wheel and the bolts in the way of how do I get this bolt off. And if you think about the problem instead of just removing this bolt, lots of new things come from that. You could take taking a step back from it, or you might find a new way of removing bolts in this, or doing this, or whatever. Reframing the problem, not to focus on your final task, but the specific thing in your way, is like a massive benefit and a skill.
Interesting. Yeah. Oh, Seb's found it. It's the book by Robert M. Pirsig. Yeah.
Highly recommend.
Yeah. Mystery solved. Okay. I wanted to talk about you've actually been on Twitch previously. So this is something that you just mentioned to me, and I would like it known that when we were trying to set up and we were like having not arguments, we don't have arguments. But when we were like deliberating over OBS, and Scarllette was the one that was like telling us, oh no, it'd be this and then so you clearly this is not your first time on Twitch. You know what you're doing, but what was the previous Twitch experience?
So in my I should first preface that I am a massive nerd and a gamer. I watch Twitch streams. When the debate was, oh, how do we start the stream? There's that. I almost just shouted, "What's up, gamers?"
You could have done. You could have done.
But so like I'm tangentially familiar in that way. In my second year of doing the undergrad here, I was head of the RPG section of the Bath Tabletop Society. So that covers, the society covers board games, trading card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering. We do, but the big, probably, my friends will get mad at me for this, but I'm okay with that. The biggest section is our tabletop section, so that's things like Dungeons and Dragons. Second year for me was during COVID, so we were all locked down and everything. But we did did a couple of live streams for a charity called Off the Record, which is based here in Bath,
Okay.
and help young folks with just like accessing counselling and therapy and things like that, and making that accessible and funding that. So we did a couple of like charity live streams for them, and the one I hosted was running Dungeons and Dragons live on Twitch.
Okay.
And I think it went pretty well.
Yeah.
We raised a good amount of money. I think we raised something like £900 in total.
That's good.
Yeah, it's really good.
So I ran a Dungeons and Dragons game where all my players were Great British Bake Off contestants in a fantasy world.
Okay. Yeah. I'm like peripherally familiar with Dungeons and Dragons. This is why I'm quite upset that Kat isn't here, because she would like, the two of you are like pieces of pot in so many ways. Like, she loves Dungeons and Dragons. Twitch streaming, is also from Wales, and so we'll have to like tease her with like sending her the stream and be like, but no. So you did that. Was that a one-off, or you did two?
That was a one-off. I helped behind the scenes, sort of running ones from that. They are buried on the internet somewhere. Do not look for them. I've done a little bit of Twitch streaming just myself, playing video games. So I'm familiar with it, the background. What happened was the year after I was involved but not running it, the Tabletop Society did it again. So they ran another one shot and all that, and that was super fun. So yeah, cool.
Is it something that you think you'd do a little bit more of in the future?
I think I would definitely do, maybe not Twitch, but definitely outreach like this. I really like outreach. It's like the reason I was shown to be interested in maths, PhD to all of it. Definitely. I can see myself hosting a podcast one day. You know, some, if it's not Twitch specifically, some regular outreach.
I mean, I think that's probably all sort of why they signed up to do this.
Definitely. And like, Kat is really passionate about this, and again, that's why Behind the Research was created. Just give us all a little bit of experience, but also, just sort of reaching out to those that maybe wouldn't otherwise see what PhD life is like, and just having that other skill set. Because I think like teaching and research is so important, but the way that maths needs to go, and maths and any science and computer science is the communication side of it.
Definitely.
And I guess especially for you with like trying to communicate like safe AI practice and all that sort of thing.
Definitely.
I think absolutely. Yeah.
I think outreach is weirdly a really safe space to like build up those skills. You're talking to people who are already tangentially either people who are thinking about PhD and need the convincing, or people who are already convinced but just don't know that that's an option. So you're not trying to sell something really difficult. You know, the audience is often really friendly. You know, it's a really safe space to like flex those muscles.
Definitely. Okay. I think we can probably call it there, unless there is anything else you want to have a chat about. If not, I have one final question. If you had to pick one, would you choose maths or computer science?
And you're with the other mathematician, so choose wisely.
It's fine. I'm not sure I would pick maths.
But Cameron's all gonna we're gonna have a fight. I would probably pick maths, but most likely because I would still get to do programming. You know, I can walk in and do maths. So I walk into a maths PhD and I don't have to give up programming. If I had to give up all the maths and the maths things I would like to do, I wouldn't be interested in doing what I'm doing. You know? So probably maths. I think there is, it's gonna be phrased weird. I like being in the computer science department researching, because I think there's a slight edginess which comes from computer science research. I think there's a lot of computer science research who's they don't take themselves too seriously. There's this degree of with a lot of maths researchers, I think, who like they're still thinking in terms of like, oh, we're doing high research, whatever, and they're not human enough. A lot of CS researchers, I think, are quite human. And I like that.
That's nice. That's good. But I think you would fit in so well in the maths department in terms of like your research and everything. It's like you said, there's always the option to do maths in other places.
Exactly.
So on that note, I think we will wrap up.
will we be
Me and Henry will be back. We will wrap up the stream
Yes.
properly. So we're gonna say goodbye to Scarllette now, and thank you so much for
Thank you
coming
for
on the
having
stream. It's been lovely chatting to you and learning about maths and AI and how they all fit in together. So yeah, chat, don't go anywhere because me and Henry will be back in less than 5 minutes. But thanks so much for watching, and thank you again.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.